Okie doke, we're going live here. Let's see how we're doing. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another live stream on the last Thursday evening of 2023. We're going to put 2023 behind us and try again in 2024. Seems like a good idea anyway. I know some people on the news are saying, oh, it was a terrible year, but, we all live slightly different lives, and I would imagine on balance, most of us had a pretty good year. Some of us will have had a kind of bad year, and some of us will have had horrid years, and some of us will have had delightful years. Mine is somewhere in the middle. As I get older, I get to learn more about parts of my body I've never really thought much about most of my life. So one of those things. Anyway, I finally got my teeth back, and I asked the doctor if, since they were redoing the bottom as well as doing the top, if they could, maybe lighten the shade a little bit so I didn't look like an old yellow-toothed hag or something. And they did. They didn't make them Hollywood white. They said that's kind of really ugly. So they picked what they said was their most popular color. And it wasn't purple. So anyway, I've got teeth. Now let's see if I can find some glasses so I can see what people are saying. One of the things I got in 2023 was a new lens in this eye. To replace the cataract that was in there. And now it's interesting how the old cataract gives a kind of a brown cast to everything, which I'd never noticed. And everything now looks bright and beautiful with this eye, and smuggy with the other eye. It's interesting, some colors that I used to think matched with my new lens in there don't match anymore. So I'm gonna have to go back and relook at everything in my life and see what we got here. Today is Thursday, the 28th of December, 2023, in Mountain Time District in the United States. I realize it's already tomorrow, Friday, in good parts of the world, and we usually get people drop by from Australia and sometimes New Zealand and very often from Manila, and so they'll all be experiencing the day tomorrow. Those who check in from the UK are the real night owls, because it's about 13 minutes, 12 minutes prior to 2 a.m. In London right now. Let's see, we've got a greeting from Ed, KN4RWQ. Greetings from Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina. And Doug Dry, hello Doug, says, good evening, Dave. Terrence, 2 Echo 0 India Papa Kilo from the UK. Hi, Dave, hope all is well with you. Doug Dry, good video and audio today, good. 3 Henry 21, hi, Dave, hope you and yours had a great Christmas, KN6. VMK, Conrad. We did. We went over to friend's house for Christmas dinner. It was low-key, kind of laid out buffet style, and I just had a nice time to visit, and both Loretta and I just came back and kind of took it easy. I didn't try to create any videos very much, although I think I did sit down and do my review notes for a little shortwave receiver. It's one of those emergency radios with a crank that charges it up, and a solar panel, and it'll actually charge your phone. Kind of an interesting little thing, and I'll have that video coming up fairly shortly. They keep pestering me about when it'll come up, so that's fine. We'll get it done. Everybody does. It gets a little busy. So we had a great Christmas. Thank you. Cornbread KO5RN 2024, thumbs up. Chuck Schreiber, good evening, Dave and all Augies, and 5 KVO from the hill country of South Texas. Currently clear sky and 47. Lately high 60s in the days, close to freezing in the mornings. Wow. Well, it's currently 23 outside, 62% relative humidity, but the dew point is only 12, so there's little chance of frost. As I've mentioned before, I'm trying to sell my airplane, and I've had a couple people now ask me, how many feet does it take off in? And I don't know. I'm used to flying it out of Delta, where I've got this whole runway in front of me. I take off when I take off. The takeoff that Troy Ball used to tell me to use is what is actually called a short field takeoff. Although it's a little bit different from that. He says, pull the stick all the way back, give it some power, go down the runway, and at some point the nose will come up. When it comes up, release the stick forward a little bit. So then, and this is a tricycle airplane. Release the stick forward a little bit, and at some point you will just lift off the ground. And then when you do, you're in ground effect, so stay in ground effect to get up to about 70 miles an hour and take off. So we're going to try some short field takeoffs tomorrow, where you sit at the end of the runway, run the engine all the way up, one notch flaps, stick back, let her rip. Take the brakes off, let her rip. And that is supposedly will give us our shortest takeoff distance. One guy who called me today wants to take the plane with him to New Guinea. He does some missionary work over there. I've got another guy that lives just around the corner from the airport who wants to actually put it on an airstrip on his own farm. And I've got a guy in West Virginia who seems quite interested, but he's very wrapped up with the holidays. So I've got several people who express serious interest, but so far no deposit. So it's open to whoever shows up to pick it up. Okay, so hopefully tomorrow it'll be cold, of course. There's a heater in the thing, and we will do what we can to try and get some idea of how long the takeoff distance is. Now, that'll only give us a data point, because we're at 5,200 feet. It'll be whatever it will be temperature, probably close to freezing. We're going to have the wind, the atmospheric pressure, all of those things is a data point. It does not mean by any means that the aircraft will perform that way at sea level or at 7,000 feet or whatever. Now, this guy who wants to buy it who's local lives at 7,000 feet, and I looked around for airports near here, and the Gunnison Airport is about 7,000 feet. So we may go over there and give it a try. But like I said, it's a data point. The takeoff distance depends on everything. It's like the first law of antennas. Takeoff distance, everything depends on everything. You know, the temperature, the pressure, the surface, the altitude, you name it. They all affect the takeoff. So, not to mention the condition of the engine or whatever. This aircraft is normally sold with a, can't remember the name, but my aircraft has a Jabiru engine in it, so I don't know what happened to the original. Okay. Lefty, good evening, Dave and Augies. May all of you have a Happy New Year. Thank you. Also, Happy New Year to everyone. Joe Tyson, hello, Dave, from Apex, North Carolina. 46 Fahrenheit, KM4WRQ. 321. Every year is a good year when you're still on the green side up, yes. You don't want to be somewhere where you're looking up at the green side. That's studying the lilies from the bottom. Leo Gustafson says, hello, Dave and Augies. Leo Gustafson, KK7CLY, visiting from Albany, Oregon. 43 in showers there. Yeah, I've heard that there's some wicked weather up and down the West Coast. They were showing on TV tonight some of the big waves that were wrecking stuff. I always think of Malibu, where all the there's a strip of private land between Pacific Coast Highway and the beach high tide line. Anything below the high tide line is open to the public, but the people who live there are very rich Hollywood-style people, and their houses are pretty much built on stilts in the sand. So a good storm like this can take out quite a number of those far too pricey homes. Okay, let's see. Apex. Deep space. I'm in the market for an antenna. The Hustler is popular. Will that work for most HF signals? Yes, it will. There are many antennas that are either a variation of a dipole or a vertical. The Hustler is a vertical. The Hustler will do better with some radials, but I think it's designed to kind of work without them. Now, the thing about a dipole or vertical, there are a million of them that you can get. End-fed, off-center fed, center fed, trapped, not trapped, all this kind of thing like that. And the key thing to remember in this is that they all perform about the same because they are a variation on a simple vertical or a simple dipole. You can pay anything you want for a vertical. Multiband verticals can be in the $600 range. I have kind of been, I may change the recommendation on the reference station page. An end-fed half-wave, a very simple antenna to put up, and it covers multiple bands. And the ARRL sells a kit where you can make the ballon for it. Or do I have that? Somewhere, there it is. This. It's a 49-to-1 Unknown that's actually made by a company called HF Kits, but you buy it through the league, and they will sell you this. You hang this up near your house, you attach the wire to this, and it goes out about 65, 64 feet, somewhere in there. Coax goes on the bottom. You can put a counterpoise on here if you want. I've not found the need to do that. And this plus the wire, they send you the wire and the insulator, is, what, about 80 bucks, something like that. That's a multi-band antenna, very nice multi-band antenna. You can use this same ballon, and if you've got the room, stretch that wire out to about 125 feet, and then you've got a portion of 80, plus you pick up more of 30, 17, and 12, and you still have 40, 20, 15, and 10. Nice antenna, and not dreadfully expensive. I mean, like I said, if you consider this the gain of a dipole, okay, because it is a dipole, it's an end-fed dipole, a vertical is going to have about the same gain. And like I said, why pay $600 for something where if you've got a little bit of room, you can do it for under $100? What I use for antenna wire, when I tried it, I've got a video on this, where I tried this thing and on 80 meters, I just used, let's see, THHN It was a stranded wire, just a single wire, not Romex, that you can get at Home Depot. You can get like 500 feet for under $100, and that'll make a lot of antennas. So something you can take care of there. Okay. Yeah, same as always, KK7PRZ. Hello from the Oregon coast. Leo says, I got in on some 20-meter action with contact with the BB Ohio battleship, I guess, Ohio. Clear as ever with that hex beam, yes. Leo says, I can't thank you enough, Dave, for your recommendation for that type of antenna. If you're going to go to a gain antenna, a number of people make what's called a hex beam. It's a 2-element beam, so it isn't anything special, but it takes all the radiation that goes all the way around and crams it into about a 90-degree sector like this. Okay, so it's real easy to aim. Of course, the problem in dealing with a beam of any kind is it doesn't do you any good if it's pointed in the wrong direction. So what some do, they'll have a simple receiving antenna that's omnidirectional. They'll hear somebody and they'll look up where they are and then point the beam. Now that means they probably won't be the first to grab them, but they can be in there pretty quickly. Now, so if the beam, now the way beams work is that they take all the energy, all the power, let's get correct here, all the power that would go out in the other directions and focus it in one place. So a hex beam takes all the power and focuses it into 1/4. So it's twice times twice the power that goes into that beam. Twice times twice is 3 plus 3 dB is 6 dB. That's 1 S unit. Okay, so that'll give you an S unit both on transmit and receive. Okay, let's see. 8 Ballrick says, good evening, Dave and all Augies. So glad I had my cataracts taken care of. Vision hasn't been this good in 30 years. Having a blast on 160 this week. 73s from Southeast Wisconsin. Rick K9ETE. Well, thank you. Now here is Sean, Cam6 NFO, puts $10 into the chat revenue, which I greatly appreciate. Says, Happy New Year, Dave and all Loggies nationwide from soggy Sacramento, California. More rain on the way. I hope it doesn't cause flooding. And what would be worse is if it is rain in the mountains, because that'll cause the snow to melt, and that will cause flooding. But maybe you'll get more snow up in the mountains there. Last October, when we went out to Pacificon, we stayed overnight in Truckee, just right on I-80, and we discovered, looking at the map, that Lake Tahoe was only 10 miles away. So the next morning, we drove down to Lake Tahoe and drove along it a little bit and just kind of enjoyed it. It's a very beautiful area. And the area that we drove through is an older section of town. Lake Tahoe has been a resort city for over 100 years, ever since the railroad went through. And so these were older cabins and stuff like that, not big fancy homes. It was very nice. Okay, David Mitchell, good evening from Vancouver, Washington. I bet you're getting rain too. Dave and Augies, just another Dave, KJ7WUZ. Andy News, greetings from Bristol in the UK, M7CUN, and greetings to you too. Leo says, it goes that way, Dave. When I was selling my Kawasaki Z1R Turbo through a Kawasaki forum, it began much the same until it simmered down to a guy in Indiana who knew how special that bike was. Yeah, I'm finding out there's kind of a community around the S6 ES Rands. And so I'm trying to learn all these little things. One of the problems is that Jabiru engine is not the original engine that came with the kit, but was put on as an aftermarket thing, apparently very early. I have a feeling this guy swapped the engine for some other engine. It has more horsepower, but of course it has more weight. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Linwood Hieronymus. Hello, Dave from Linwood, N4FZZ in Tennessee. Happy New Year. Thank you. Leo, ultimately, I got $2,000 more than what I paid for it 20 years prior. When you get a classic bike like that, the price goes up. Optical Man Jeff, Happy New Year, Dave from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it's 32 degrees and dense fog. I don't think we'll see fog today. It's 22 degrees, but the dew point's 11, so very little chance of fog. Now, if it's clear out, it was clear all day, that means it will become bitterly cold tonight because there's no clouds to keep the heat in. So we'll see how that goes. And Fernando Martinez says, Merry Christmas from Dallas, Texas, to you too. Joe Tyson, Dave, you got a new chair? I did. It's technically a gaming chair. And I have a little trouble with my assistant getting it back from him because he likes it so much. It's much lighter than the old chair. It allows me to sit closer to the computer and is quite comfortable, actually. Quite comfortable. The old chair had a problem where you'd set the thing up and then it would go to one side. And it just kept doing that, falling over, and I never could figure out what the problem was. So it's sitting in the other room if anybody would like to stop by and pick it up. Let's see. So new chair, yes, Leo Gustafson. What part of the Oregon coast? KK7PRY, I forget. My favorite place on the Oregon coast, I know there's many beautiful locations there, but is Newport. Newport's about halfway down the Oregon coast, and it's a little a river comes out there. There's a bay in there, and this magnificent bridge to get the traffic over to the other side. And the city is full of really cool seafood restaurants right on the docks. And of course there, the docks, as far as sea lions are concerned, were put there for their use. So sea lions will hop up on those docks and attack anybody who tries to push them out of the way. Oh, I remember seeing something once. I was looking at a Navy ship that was in a port in Monterey Bay. And on the little launch landing, there was a stair down the side of the ship and a little landing area for people to come out in small launches so they could get onto the ship. And some sea lion just decided that this was his territory. And I remember watching some poor sailor who had been directed to take a broom down and force that thing back into the sea. And it did not work. The seaman was backing up and backing up and backing up. Oh, very interesting. Okay. David W. Mitchell, does the unfed half-wave antenna need a tuner? The answer is yes, but. The SWR is under 3-to-1 on all the bands, usually under 2-to-1. But most modern radios come with an antenna tuner that will tune that right out. So if it's a 3-to-1 SWR, tune it right down to 1-to-1. So I use the tuner when I use the NFED half wave, and it works very well. Okay, Joe Bauman, greetings, Dave, has a question. I am trying to get on 144.2 USB. I have an Arrow 8-element vertical Yagi, which doesn't do well because most folks around me use horizontal beams and such. That is true. On VHF, well, 6 meters and above, it is the convention that FM is done with vertical polarization and all other modes are done with horizontal polarization. Now, you can whip up a 6-meter dipole and nothing flat. They're very short. They're 3 meters. They're 15 feet long. And you can hook that almost anywhere. And, tweak the ends of it for a nice SWR, and you've got yourself a good antenna. And you can put it together. Go down to a farm store or something like that and purchase electric fence insulators. Let me show you some. So I just bought a bunch. This is the box. 10 large corner post ceramic insulators, part number WP36. And what they've got in here are a bunch of insulators. These are ceramic, in other words, glass. So you can put the wire from one side through here, the wire from the other side around here, and attach them, and then you can attach your coax up like that, and then you put another one of these at the end. And they are really, really inexpensive. So for 10 of them, it's less than $10. And you'll use them for future antennas. So that would work without a problem. Okay. So the 8-element vertical Yagi, you can actually just lay over on its side. Oh, you're on I was thinking 6 meters for some reason. 2 meters, your antenna is 3 feet long. You can make a dipole for that very easily. Okay, yeah, take that vertical Yagi and just rotate it 90 degrees, and you'll be fine. Okay, sat the chair for a bit. Yes, the other one has seen better days. Oh, that's for sure. Brian Mullins, LOL. Neil Marsh, good evening from Mount St. Helens country. Let's hope that volcano stays quiet. There's a volcano news guy. He's a geologist. Makes some interesting videos about volcanoes anywhere in the world. And he's talking about some of the Pacific Coast Range volcanoes there, showing a little bit of activity. So, and then of course there's the one in Iceland that just blew up. And then they let everybody back into that town, and the next thing that happened is the wind blew all the bad gases down into the town. So, I tried to use, let's see, Rob Q, hello Dave from Los Angeles, my old stomping grounds. Joe Bauman, I tried to use my 6 through 40 off-center fed dipole and seems not to help. Let's see, Joe, he's looking for the 2 meters. No, that won't get you anywhere there. Is there any way to improve the situation until I can change the orientation of my Yagi? Just make a dipole. It's 3 feet long. Well, it's 19 inches on either side. Okay. And so, what are we? This big right here? All right. Just feed it with coax in the middle and hang it up somewhere. I mean, if you want to, you can put an SO239. I don't have one right here. An SO239 on it so that you can take the coax off of the Yagi, plug it into the dipole while you're working that, while you're waiting to get that Yagi taken care of. Trying to think of another way. You just want horizontal polarization. And always lay an antenna on its side, but the SWR could really do weird things. Joe Bauman, I'm running 100 watts at about 30 feet for both antennas. Yeah. 100 watts on 2 meters. Now, here's a interesting little factoid. On VHF, UHF, there are 2 general mode designations. One is FM, and the other is what they call the weak signal modes. Now, a single sideband signal can be perfectly strong, but for some reason they've been called weak signal modes. But they cover everything else. I mean, there's FT8 on 2 meters. There's other kinds of digital in addition to the stuff that you would do with a vertical antenna. And there's sideband, there's CW, slow scan TV. On 70 centimeters and above, you can do fast scan TV. A lot of people, there's an overlap between the Wi-Fi range, for Wi-Fi at the home, and the ham band. And you can use that. People create what they call mesh networks. And it's just you take this old router and you put new firmware in it, and it will work on amateur radio now. And you can send fast scan HD TV around. Or you can do it the old way, lots of different ways. Okay, let's see. Thanks from Tampa, Florida, from Joe Bauman, KE0OG, Deep Space, thanks. Richard Lowe, Happy New Year, Dave, from Huntingdon, UK. There's a Huntington not far from where I grew up, Huntingdon. Happy New Year, thank you, Richard, and Happy New Year to you too. Larry comes in from Manila. It's a warm 86, no rain, doing upgrades of some of my programs. Got a new keyboard and mouse for Christmas at Lights and a gaming typo. Very nice. I use this old keyboard here. This is an old IBM Type M keyboard that was originally put together to go with the PS2. In fact, it has the PS2 connector on the end of it. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of the new keyboards, but it types just like a Selectric. It was designed to be that way. And with my fingers having all the shake and everything in them, I find this keyboard far easier to use than the standard El Cheapo Logitech keyboard. So I got this. It was given to me along with the computer and a good old-fashioned 19-inch CRT monitor, and that's what I worked with for quite a while. And then when they upgraded me to a laptop, I asked them, what do you want me to do with the old stuff? And they said, well, we don't want it back. Go give it to charity or something. So I gave the monitor and the computer to charity. And somehow the M+M keyboard just never made it out the door. I figured if IBM were throwing it away, it could be mine. And it has been for years. I mean, the things are indestructible. Very nice keyboards. Good haptic response on them. And of course now the charity stores don't want anything even vaguely like a computer because they're all out of date and nobody wants them. When I came down here in 2003, I donated all of my darkroom stuff to the local school. and they professed to be happy with it, but within a couple of years, everything had gone digital, including me. All that old photo. I paid $1,000 for that, whatever it was. It was a Pentax. It was top of the line. And I've always liked Pentax. And that was a wonderful, wonderful camera, but it just was not digital. So I've been through a bunch of digital cameras. My latest is this thing up here, which you can't see behind the OG logo, but it's what I use for vertical shots. It's 4K, but I only film in HD. Okay. Larry, need a new chair, but shipping be hard? Yes. Newport is beautiful. I'm a little south of Newport. In Newport, just south of the river, there's an old Army airfield hangar, and it's got a museum in there of working old warbirds, and very, very interesting. And then also based at the airport, which is also Newport's airport. But it is, there's a guy who gives little helicopter tours. He has one of these little bug-eyed 3-seat helicopters, one of which is taken up by him. And he'll give you a little helicopter ride around. And so I wanted to do that. My wife was absolutely adamant that there was no way on this planet she was getting on that helicopter. So it came back down in, and off of it got a couple, man and wife. And I made a suggestion to that woman that she go talk to my wife. Well, next thing I know, here comes my wife. She's still scared spitless. But we put her in the middle. And then I went on the side, and the pilot took us up, and we went up past Newport and around the lighthouse. And I got a million pictures of this. Around the lighthouse, and then back down and over the harbor. And Loretta was so jazzed when she got off of that. She thought it was wonderful. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my favorite memory of Newport. It's close to Reedsport. Neil Marsh, every few years we become temporary Lincoln City, Oregon residents. Matt Valencia, KE0OG, keep the great content coming. I have learned a lot from your channel. Just upgraded to General and still using the AG until the ULS updates. Thanks again in 73. Well, Matt, welcome to your generalhood, and I'm just absolutely excited that you've made that change. Now, my standard advice to people is get your tech, get your general. Then set up a general class station and get on it and just use the heck out of that radio. Learn how the HF bands work, what works at certain times of the day, and so on. Experiment with a different antenna or two. Do some DX, do some contesting. Lots of rag chewing. Try FT8, try RIDI, try voice, try slow scan, something like that. But the bottom line is this. Then, after a couple of years, take your extra exam. And it will mean so much more to you than just going straight to extra. So, yeah, use that excitement that you've got right now to just keep those bands warm. And congratulations on that. KE2BXZ/AG. Very good. Okay, Ton Voodoo. Good evening. New tech here from Cedar Edge, Colorado. Well, I'm waving. Can you see the wave? Because we're not that far apart. The repeater that I often use, that our club uses, is in Cedar Edge, which is not very far from here. South Beach. Oh, Must be talking about the guy near Newport. Larry says, I was on an ammo ship. Okay, what happened? And witnessed many of those seals. They got nervous when they saw a fin. Turned out it was not a shark. Yeah, it's dog eat dog out there. It sure is. Leo Gustafson says, my family first homesteaded up the Umpqua near Dean Creek, actually right where the elk viewing center is. That's wonderful. Same as always, KK7PRZ. I want to build a noodle antenna for 20 meters. Well, go ahead, do it. Larry in Manila, I have a 6-meter loop and dipole and plan to use it with my ICOM once I get the stuck screw out. Seen some insulators that were railroad types. I would love it. Oh, the old telegraph insulators. I have one of those, and I'm not sure where. It was on display or something. But I actually have one. I actually bought it in an antique store for something like $3. Terrence in the UK, I have an infed dipole with the 49-to-1 Unan. It slopes from around 20 feet down to about 3 feet, and I don't need my tuner. I have good SW on all 4 bands. Well, great. That sounds like something that works. Glenn Martin, hello from Far West Missouri area and 0QFT. Hello, Glenn. Paul Russo. Paul K2PB. Happy New Year, Dave. Deep Space. I have a KZ650. Great bike. I rebuilt it. Runs great. Love driving it in the mountains. Oh, yeah. That's the best place for a motorcycle, is around those curves on a very lightly traveled road. Is really wonderful. So we have around here about 3 really good day trips that you can do on a motorcycle. But if you go any further away, you're going to be needing to stay overnight somewhere. Western Colorado has some fantastic scenic country, but we forget how vast Southwest Colorado is. So it's a pretty good sized area. Let's see. Larry, I heard there was a ham who died during the explosion. I listened to most of it on a Drake SSR1 off Hawaii en route to Japan. Him who died in the explosion, are you talking? Oh, Mount St. Helens in the 80s. Yeah, there were some people who did not take the Forest Service literally when they said evacuate. There was this guy who was 20 miles from Mount St. Helens, and he thought he was well outside the blast area. He had a camera set up that was taking pictures. They recovered the camera. They also recovered his body. Problem was Mount St. Helens did not blow up. It blew out to the side. And the ejecta from the volcano, the overburden, went far more than 20 miles. I mean, it was a massively, massively powerful explosion. And since then, there's been a lava dome sort of rising in the center of it as the magma comes up, but I don't think anybody thinks it will erupt soon. There's been some steam and stuff like that, but the explosion of Mount St. Helens changed that area enormously. Of course, millions of trees were just stripped of their and cooked because the stuff that comes out the volcano is sometimes just dust. If you get lava and it encounters water, of course that bursts to steam, and then with it, it takes tiny bits and pieces of the lava, which formed the ash cloud. And there was a lot of ash from Mount St. Helens, even though there wasn't a crater lake. 6 or 8 inches of ash, even in Astoria or Portland. It was a major disaster at the time. And then, of course, we had the one in Tonga, which is really something. Dylan Brown says, Happy New Year's, Dave. Thank you very much. Joe Bauman, wow, it's been a minute since I saw one of those keyboards. Leo says, Larry, when I was with Mardet up at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, our Liberty plane would fly right over the devastated landscape. Yeah, it was really something. David, it just reminds you who's really in charge here. David Mitchell, thanks, Dave. Yes, Granddad lived in Newport. And when I was a kid, sea lions weren't so brazen. Beautiful town. I am from Coos Bay. Okay, Brian says, Dave, you should upgrade your monitor to a 32-inch TV to help out with reading all those scrolling comments. Well, my monitor is an LG 27-inch monitor, 4K. It's a 4K monitor. So it is very, very nice and sharp. It's like well, I bought one and it went bad. But that was after the warranty. I bought this one and it went bad, but it was under warranty and back it went. And I don't know if they sent me the same one back or what they did, but this one so far is working very well. 4K monitors, I mean, they're out there. They're just not that common. You cannot get them at Office Depot. They don't carry 4K monitors. I got this one up in Grand Junction at Best Buy. The computer I got a computer. Now this computer I'm using is one I built a few years ago. But I got another computer for my long-suffering assistant who had been using a laptop and it was just slower than the dickens. So I bought a sort of a middle to top of the line gaming computer, and they have all these LED lights and everything. Anyway, the only thing that's on there is the editing software for what we do here. I'm thinking I'm going to turn it into a flight simulator. So I can do that when he's not here. Because it would be very good for it. I want to use Microsoft Flight Simulator. I have the yoke, the throttle quadrant, and the pedals. The problem is, when I tried to use the Lockheed Flight Simulator, it was just a stinker to get going. And you had to use something called Steam and all that stuff like that. And I've kind of got the impression that if you buy Microsoft Flight Simulator, you don't really have everything you need. And I need somebody who knows how to put that together to tell me you need this, 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 and this. You install this in this order, so on and so forth, so I can get that thing up and running. What I really want to practice most are my landings. And I love this stuff about, it's supposed to have really good scenery in it, because where I live is anything but flat. And I love just driving the plane around the sky here. It's neat. Okay, David Mitchell was raised in Coos Bay, which I've been to, Oregon, at south end of the 40 miles of dunes. And I remember camping with my parents in Coos Bay. And we went out into an area that was grassy. When we got there in the morning, we stepped into 6 inches of water, which was kind of interesting. We had a tent trailer rather than a tent on the ground, so nothing was damaged or anything like that, but it did make for an interesting comment, and I Actually got to hear some of my father's French. At least that's what he said it was. Larry says the one he's got is called a CMC KG0OG, a super keyboard. I still have a C64 keyboard, been in storage. Leo says I drove for Porter Stage Lines out of Coos Bay in the 90s. Dylan Brown, I live in Newport, Washington. Okay. Matt Valencia, KE2BXZ, with a 6-meter phased squalo array, horizontally polarized, improve my takeoff angle possibly. Also, should I expect any gain? Yes, you do get a little gain. It's not a lot. Now, the problem with the squalo, I think they're actually square. So you're going to have to build a mount for it that's fairly sturdy. It's not like just a little vertical antenna or something like that. But if you've got a mount that can carry your Yagi, you're probably okay with the squalo. There was an article on QST not too long ago about that. So take a look at that. Okay, whoops, let's see this. Larry, I was southbound on I-5 west of the mountains when it blew on May 18th. Quite a day. Oh, yes. Yeah, oh, gosh, you could see that thing for a long ways. Leo says, Helos, I found that I had much more fun than fixed wing when I was up at Nass Whidbey Island. Larry in Manila says, I rode one of those twin rotors and was scared when one crashed off the USNS Pecos. I had 3 of those flights, one in Bahrain. Leo says, I was riding in UH-1 slicks being a Marine. Andrew, hi Dave, N1XXU, hello. Neil Marsh, congratulations on pronouncing Umpqua, Dave. We'll get you pronouncing Shahalis correctly yet. I have no idea. I'm just trying. A lot of these names come from various Indians, like Ouray. South of here is named after Chief Ouray. And there's a long road that's outside of, that goes around Montrose, where the Indian Museum is, that's called Chipeta. And Chipeta was Chief Ouray's wife. And there are statues to the 2 of them. Chief Ouray and Chipeta were very highly thought of by the whites around here. Of course, the net result was the natives got pushed entirely off their land. There's still Utes in southwestern Colorado down by Cortez, and then there's Navajo around them. Utah, of course, is named after the Utes, and there is a Ouray in Utah, but it's pronounced Ouray. So there you go. It's like the city of Dubois in Wyoming. It's spelled Dubois, but they pronounce it Dubois. There's a city up in Colorado, central Colorado, that looks like Buena Vista, but everybody there calls it Buena Vista. So there we go. Okay. Larry says, when I first got licensed, I had purchased an ICOM 730 and the captain tried to confiscate it. It's now here in the shack. Good. Deep Space, Go Team Green. David Mitchell to Terrence, thank you for the info. Larry in Manila. And Neil, I was on a cargo ship en route to Japan. The ship electrician who sold me the radio, and I listened to some of the comms. Was great to hear. The Drake was my first shortwave radio. Well, that back then was there was quite a bit to listen to. Mark French, the gentleman you were referring to, was interviewed on TV. Yeah. Yeah, he wouldn't leave. He wouldn't leave. And they went back and looked for him, and his car was just crushed. I mean, he had nowhere to hide because the rocks just came through his vehicle, came through the trees, came through everything. If he had built a foxhole, he might have had a little bit better luck. John Brace has added $10 to the chat revenue, K9BRS. Thank you very, very much for that. It really helps keep the channel afloat and helps me pay my assistant and get little things like this or these insulators so that I can show them to you and make antennas and all of that sort of thing. Thank you very much. Larry in Manila, I run a Skyworth 32-inch, bought from the mall, only went out once. We have a tech here who replaced it. It's a TV monitor. I use it with my programs like RIDI and SDR. Leo says, speaking of simulator flight controls, I used Thrustmaster Cougar extensively back when I was into flight programs. They're languishing in a box in the radio room nowadays. Yeah, well, I'd rather fly the real airplane. 3 Henry 21, Dave, I still have a small bucket of Mount St. Helens ash that my uncle was shoveling out of his backyard swimming pool. Wow. Larry in Manila says I got a M2 incorporated loop and used a few times. My son made me laugh. He tried it as a TV antenna and it worked pretty well. Leo Gustafson, Neil, how about Puyallup? Puyallup. 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 Puyallup, Washington. NV Don, hello from Emmett, Idaho, W3DRM, welcome. Kumquats, anglicized pronunciations, well, of course. I see we have a large Hispanic population in Denver, and half the newscasters on Channel 7 are Hispanic. And when they pronounce an Hispanic name, they pronounce it in Spanish. And it goes like, what did you just say? I don't recognize that name from there. I learned a little Spanish in high school, but not enough to do me any good. And around here, the main influence is Mexican. Mexican Spanish, the double L is ya, like tortilla. But the Spanish pronunciation from Spain, the ly is ly. I mean, the ll is ly. Tortilla. Something like that. So it's a little different. The French up in Quebec, they are absolutely certain that they're speaking French. And the people in France are absolutely certain that they're speaking 200-year-old French. So languages diverge. You got to remember that the United States was originally populated by Englishmen. Well, I mean, originally populated by the Native Americans who got shoved aside. The Native Americans had an interesting custom they have to this day, which is what that tribe in its area owns the resources. If you want to go in there and build a house, fine. But when you start using the water or using the resources, that's when they get upset. So when the Pilgrims first arrived and they started building and so on, they weren't really competing that much with the local native population for resources because there was plenty to go around in terms of birds and things like that. And so they got along until they found out how territorial the Europeans are. When they say they own the land, they mean they own the land. Don't you come on it. So anyway, it's a very interesting culture clash that happened then. Anyway, they pronounced these Hispanic names in Spanish They're not anglicized at all. So, okay. Alan Failer, hello, Dave and followers from Ohio, from KB8RXY. Al, who wishes us best wishes. Larry said the USNS Pecos, the crew was doing practice touch and go, and the rear wheels got stuck in the nets. The pilot tried to compensate, and it flew over the side. Some crew died, I heard. It's YouTube. Well, that's terrible. Yeah, if you get stuck in the nets, it's not good. Okay, any recommendations for a limited space 160 antenna? As a matter of fact, the League publishes, I think they still publish, a book on 160-meter antennas. Basically, what you're going to have to do is make a vertical. Now, I take that back. You can make a horizontal full wavelength loop. So that's 40 meters or 66 feet on the side. Is that right? No. 160 meters, okay, divided by 4, 40 meters on the side, 66 feet on the side. It's big. And you can put up that horizontal loop. It'll mostly transmit straight up, but you get enough out to the sides you can get something. That's one way to put one up. Another way is to make the tallest vertical you can make, and then base load it with coil and top load it with spikes out from the sides, which actually creates electrically capacitance. So you've got inductance at the bottom, capacitance at the top, and it'll cover a few kilohertz of 160 meters. They're interesting antennas. So that's kind of what I would recommend for that. I cannot say that I've seen any commercial 160 meter antennas for sale. They're mostly, because the market's very small. Not very many people get on 160 meters. My radio will do it, most everybody else's will. Optical Man Jeff, KE0OG, it got chopped off there, has added $15 to the channel funds. Says, thanks, Dave, for a great year of very informative ham information. Great job, Dave. Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that, and I hope we will keep that up in 2024. KE4ASC says, thanks. Larry in Manila says, not sure if it was related, but the captain got taken off the ship. That's what always happens, okay? In the Navy, well, this is really true of air bases too. The guy in charge is an 06 level somebody. That's captain in the Navy, full colonel in the Air Force. And he is responsible for everything that goes on under his command. It doesn't matter whether he had nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter if he was in the middle of fixing it. It doesn't matter if he knew nothing about it. The captain or the full colonel in charge of the air base go down with the ship. And so if there's an accident on board a ship that takes somebody's life, the commander will be fired. It's just the way it is. And everybody in the Navy understands that. On an air base, if there's an accident, you know, other than one airplane crash, yeah, maybe they can get away with that. But if investigation shows that the maintenance was bad, out goes the commander. It's just the way it is in the military. It's just understood that when you are in command, when you have a command position, everything is your responsibility and nobody above you. It's your responsibility. So it just is, yeah. Brian Young, KJ6EB, says best wishes to all. Neil Marsh, Leo addressing to Leo, known as Pukyalup, after certain teenage parties involving beverages we weren't old enough to possess. Oh, yes. Puke all up. Chris Robinson, pull you all up is the easiest way to pronounce it. Pew all up. There you go. Leo Gustafson is laughing. Dave Andrus has added $10 to the chat revenue, says 73 from K0OG, Pleasant Grove, Utah. I've even been there. And hello from Utah. When we go over to visit my sisters, we go over Highway 6, which comes out in I can't remember the name of it. There's an airport there, and a very famous YouTuber is there, but that's around that area. Now, Dave, this is your first super chat on a live stream, and so I thank you very much for the first time. Anybody else who would like to do it for the first time, you're welcome to do that. YouTube tells me that you're doing it for the first time. Thank you, Dave, very much. K7DAA, Pleasant Grove, Utah. Chris Robinson, we used to live in Snohomish County and was the ARC lead for comms in the area. Richie's Radio Room has added $4 to the chat revenue, and he's got a little icon that's a cup of coffee. I guess that's about what a cup of coffee is. Don't drink coffee, but you get some really good hot chocolate at a Starbucks. Chris Robinson, of course, most don't know Seattle is named after the Sauk Suattle. Okay. Yeah, Seattle is they often refer to him as Chief Seattle. And they often infer that if Chief Seattle said it, it is so. And it's basically scripture to those who follow that sort of thing. But yeah, all those places up there. There were some problems with. There are many little islands around there, in the Seattle area, across the bay, and so on. And there were some illegal niceties that were not followed when the United States once again abrogated a treaty with the local natives. And the local natives came into court and says, that island, and that island, we want them whites off because that's our land. And the court actually agreed with some of that. And it got messy for a while. This is 40, 50 years ago. Long time. It's a pretty area. We came up through Olympia, went up through Seattle, went down around the bay, took the ferry over to Victoria, did a no-no. We had a rental car. We weren't supposed to take it out of the country, but we figured we weren't that far from the U.S., so we went over to Victoria, went up and visited the Bouchard Gardens, stayed at the Marriott there. I had a lot of frequent flyer points at the time. Just absolutely beautiful. That's where I met that Scotsman in the Mackenzie tartan. And then went back there, went out to Olympia National Park, down the Washington coast, and then stayed in Astoria, which is quite photogenic, especially that big bridge across the Columbia, and then headed on south from there. It was just a very, very nice trip that we had. That was our 10th wedding anniversary that we celebrated a year late. We were going to go to the UK, but that was the year that they had those airport terrorist attacks. So we decided to just stay in the U.S. Someday we'll do that trip, still a bucket list item. I've got on my bucket list to come over to the UK and see all the sites that involve radio. I want to see the Greenwich Observatory. I want to stand on the line. I want to go out to Poldhu and see all the stuff that Marconi had and the termination of the transatlantic cable and the old telegraph equipment that is out there. I want to go up. There's a radio observatory up there. I want to go to Bletchley Park, of course. There's just a million places I want to do. What I'd like to do is spend about a month over there in the summer, seeing all of these things. I just really would. I mean, there is so much of electrical history that took place in Great Britain. Of course, we claim Edison, so. Okay, Larry, it may sound funny. I'm married here in the Philippines, and some days have problems with the language. They say Tagalog is the same as Spanish. Oh, no. I spent more time in Japan than here, but learned fast. In Tagalog, how are you is kamusta. And in Spanish is como estás, very similar. Chris Robinson, anyone else waiting for the snow? We live here in eastern Oregon now, and it has 0 snow so far. Every storm, as usual, has stalled at the Cascades or gone around us. That's the problem with eastern Oregon. It's desert. When I was on a motorcycle trip out there, we went through eastern Oregon. Camp John Day, I think, was on the road. And as we went, it was almost like somebody drew a line down the highway. It says, okay, this side is dry, this side is jungle. And it was jungle all the way till you got to the sea. I just loved it there. It was beautiful. Didn't enjoy getting sopping wet, but I did. So, yeah, the snow was kind of funny this year. Larry in Manila, my brother KC0OG is in one of those apartments not allowing antennas, but he tosses a wire outside his window. Good FT8 contacts. Yes, you can. Chris Robinson, we loaded the downspout and rain gutters on our apartments in Idaho. Made great 80-meter contacts north-south nightly from Sandpoint to South America. Mark French, it's called loss of confidence of command. Well, yeah, there's a name for it. But basically, if you are in command, you are the designated scapegoat. It just comes with command. You're the designated scapegoat. And there has to be a designated scapegoat, and it's the commander. And that lack of confidence in command, yes. Well, they've used that other times when they take people out the way. Okay, Larry had a string of Christmas lights that worked on shortwave bands. Leo said, sorry, Dave, my password got messed up, otherwise I'd contribute tonight. Sorry to hear that. I had trouble with Google password when my account was hacked and had a dickens of a time getting it back, but finally got it back. I mean, they took over my YouTube site, and what they broadcast was really slick promotional videos for cryptocurrency. And it turns out what they had done was they put their stuff up on top of mine. So when I finally got control back, I was able to get rid of their stuff really easily. And most, not all, of my videos came back. Some of the very early ones came back in a rather whimsical order, but they came back. And I've not had trouble with it since. Obviously, changes in passwords, two-factor authentication, stuff like that. Okay. Larry in Manila, wish it snow here, but even in the cold mountain, Baguio and Tagaytay, it is not enough. I've been to Baguio. I was up there one day when it was really cold, down near freezing. I'm not sure where Tagaytay is. And I believe that's the correct pronunciation. AY is pronounced I in Tagalog. There's a city south of Manila called Pasay, and all the American expats there call it Pasay, but it's Pasay. Let's see, Chris Robinson, I'm at a mile high in the high desert of Oregon. We usually have an abundance of snow by now. This year we have 0. Oh, yeah. Larry, for those who want to view the crash, yeah, it's on, everything's on YouTube. Mark French, I'm not a ham, but your videos are very interesting. Been monitoring PD and FD and hams for a year. All of Europe is a museum. I traveled there several times. It is definitely. I went to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam when I was over there with my father, who was by that time, I think, retired and an artist. He worked most of his life for LA City Schools, putting together programs for the what they called then the educable mentally retarded. Now they call it special access, special something. And he was one of the pioneers of that. Anyway, I went to the Rijksmuseum, and when I went in there, after a few minutes of looking around, I said to myself, I have never seen art until today. I mean, this poor Californian just got blown off his feet in there. And it was just, you could spend years going through that place. Unfortunately, we did not get to go into the Louvre because it was closed that day. And there was a mix-up in when it was closed and when it wasn't. So didn't get to see Mona Lisa, but boy, what I saw in the Rijksmuseum just totally blew me away. Those people really knew what they were doing. Let's see, where were we here? Mark, I would encourage you to look into becoming a ham. You can go to my website, dcasler.com. That's dcasler.com/training. And there's a link there that will take you to the training videos. There is a video there that will tell you what book you need to buy. The book and the videos go together. And a lot of people have had success with that. Now, people make the test out to be harder than it really is. My daughter passed her technician 2 weeks shy of her 10th birthday. My son also got his license, and my wife got her license. In fact, it was my daughter who taught her. She was maybe 11 by that point. So, yes, it can be done. And then the next thing I would encourage you to do, and maybe not wait till next, would be to find a club and join. Now, you may have to do a little club shopping. Some clubs are just stuck in the mud. Others are just a real joy to go to because they're very well run and they have programs. You know, I go to a club meeting not just to listen to the minutes of the last meeting. I go to a club meeting to learn something. And so even when I give the presentation, I'm learning something, always. So anyway, take a look at that. Find ham friends and get involved. And the thing that will make you succeed is the thing that makes anyone succeed at anything. and that is perseverance. Stick with it. Don't give up. If something is hard, ask a question. Go to askdave@arrl.org. That will come straight to me. Okay? Also, I may answer it in an issue of QST, and I owe them my article for March, I think it is. Like on Monday. I've got to get that done. There's just lots of really good stuff that you can do. Okay, let's see. Michael Williams. Good evening, Dave. I'm Michael, KI5TWO, and I can't figure out why I'm getting so much static when any of the LED lights in my home is turned on. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks, in 73. Yes, LED lights will do that. LEDs are current-driven devices, and they need a certain amount of current. So they put them all in series, so they all get the same current. There's a whole bunch of lights in one of your LED bulbs. And so there's often a switching power supply in there that will send the current through a rectifier and then through a device that, instead of holding it at a constant voltage, pushes a certain amount of current through. That device is the equivalent of a switching power supply, and it will create static noise. And shy of putting ferrite beads on all of your lights, you're not going to get over that. So what I'd suggest is you harden your station. You put a ground rod in right outside. See my Ask Dave video number 8. Put a ground rod in right outside your station. Put a station ground rod in. Mine is within inches of my hand over here. Ground all your equipment to it, and then that goes to ground. Ground. Everything grounded. Your antenna lead-ins come all the way to the ground rod, and you put in a lightning arrestor, okay, attached to the ground rod, which will ground the outside of the shield, and the only part of the antenna that is exposed to that static is way outside, okay? So, proper station grounding. Also, if it's a tick-tick-tick kind of noise, which it might be, on your radio you have a noise blanker. That is actually designed to help with automotive ignition noise, but it may help with that. You've also got noise reduction, and if all the static is at a small frequency band, you can use your notch filter to get rid of it. So you've got a number of features to fight it. Your best bet will be to get aggressive on grounding your station. The ground rods cost about less than $20, I think, at Home Depot or Lowe's. You can either pound them in with a sledgehammer. They do have ground rod drivers, and you can push those things in that way. And then all of your ground connections, make sure that they are crimp, not solder, because the currents from lightning can be very high and will instantly vaporize that solder and create quite a problem. So that's why it's crimped. A crimped connection can handle an overcurrent for the 3 or 4 milliseconds that the lightning is going through it and remain perfectly fine. That's why on all grounding we do it with a crimp rather than soldering. You know, we might solder our power leads, but we crimp our ground leads. Look at Ask Dave number 8, and you'll find the information that you need to do that, but really harden that ground. I have all around me here LED lights of all different kinds. I've got standard bulbs, okay? I've got a lamp here that doesn't even have an interchangeable bulb. It's just permanently mounted. I've got some LED lights up here that are designed for video use. I've got a big, long, 4-foot long LED light that's designed for shop use over my workbench. And up above me here, I have 3 LED lights in there. And I have 0 interference. And the reason is because my station is very well grounded. So give that a try. That should help. Okay. Mark French, my dad was a captain in the Navy. Well, he will know all about that. By the way, retiring as a full captain is a remarkable achievement, and my hat is off to him. Neil Marsh, LED power supplies are noisy little buggers. Yes, they are. Let's see, Larry, I heard the captain pop positive on drugs. Oops. And the command took his license away. I guess that's the license to be a captain. The Pecos is mostly civilian mariners, and he was kicked out of the company. Tagaytay is next to the volcano Taal. Okay, I've been there. I thought Tagaytay was familiar. I have been on the edge of the volcano looking down at the lake and the little island in there. They have probably by now evacuated everybody from the island because that volcano keeps burping. And Taal is, it's spelled T-A-A-L, and each A is pronounced Taal. And it's a big, hairy volcano, and it is on the list of volcanoes to be watched. Let's see, 73 to all got an eye, ear, and net to check in. Jake, and we're going to wrap up here pretty quickly. Jake, KC3WUS, I spent all day building 2-meter antenna out of an aluminum walker that I curb picked while listening to Ask Dave Vids. Really? Leo says the tech stuff is downright easy, Mark. It is, Leo. I agree. Of course, I think the extra stuff is easy, but the thing that throws people is the math. But remember, the math is only one part of it. The other stuff is that you know some safety regs, what your emission privileges will be, and so on. See, ham radio is different from all the other radio services. In ham radio, you can design, build, test, and manufacture your own radio. No other radio service can do that. You can repair or attempt to repair your own radio, regardless. You can design and build amplifiers from scratch and antennas and so on. No other radio service has that privilege. What the FCC is trying to do, among other things, is know that you won't get yourself into trouble by broadcasting, hams don't broadcast, transmitting where you shouldn't be, like, for example, on public safety frequencies, and that you won't kill yourself. Okay? So they're looking at safety. They're looking that you know what your limitations are. And remember, a technician license is a license to learn. Also a license to talk. So you should be doing that too. Ham radio operators are among the few in this country who actually have a federal license to talk. And we use it quite a bit. Okay, let's see. Mark says he's been watching the videos, plans to get the license sometime next year. Coming up soon. Is it true that in the Navy the person who is in command is addressed as captain no matter what his rank? I think that's more a Star Trek thing than anything else. As smaller ships, you have somebody of a lesser rank. I don't know what the... I know what is done in the Air Force. You know, the person in charge would be the commander. And there were times when I was a first lieutenant, and when the commander went on vacation, I became the commander, because there always needed to be a commander. and I would be the commander. And that was highly entertaining at times. Any plans to attend the Hamfest in Friedrichshafen, Germany? There's a big aviation show there too. Oh, it's on my bucket list. I would love to do that. I took the tech test cold on a lark and passed it. Granted, I've been a radio geek forever, but still, it just wasn't all that tough. Again, that depends on your background. Some things can be an absolute mystery until the right person comes along and explains it. Let's see. Larry in Manila had a guy question a person after he was licensed. Our comments is that what Elmers do, we even help even newcomers. Yes. I have LED replacement tubes in my kitchen lights that are fed by a ballast. I cannot use them when I'm on the radio. Yeah, same kind of problem. We have purchased, our kitchen lights were can lights. And you can purchase something. We just unplug the bulb, and they've got a little cord, and you screw that into the other one, and then it just sits up right there against the ceiling and actually makes a seal around it. And they're LEDs. I measured them. They had the same power as the 60-watt light bulb. They were at 10.5 watts each. So when I turn on all the kitchen lights, I'm still under 100 watts. They're all LED. Okay. And I do have some of those replacement bulbs in the garage, but I've never tried operating with those lights on. Yeah. Okay. VK7DAZ, Darren, Tasmania, Australia. 23 degrees C there. Currently studying my certificate in electronics and radio through the Radio and Electronics School. Will help me progress to my advanced license. Well, congratulations. Very good. Leo, granted, when I first tried studying from Look Who's Talking, I think it's Now You're Talking was the original. It seemed very daunting indeed. A great reference, but for technician exam, there are many abbreviated study guides. I don't recommend abbreviated study guides, and let me tell you why. Because it turns you into a license holder, not a ham. You're not a ham until you get on the air and do something. And those abbreviated courses don't teach you enough. So if you look at my technician courses, there's like 25 videos, each somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes long. I try to include as much lore in them as I can, so people have some idea when they get a radio in their hand what to do with it. But the first thing to do when you're a ham is find yourself a mentor. Let's see, we're overtime, aren't we? Okay, we are overtime. Theodore to Echo Zero Golf India Yankee has come in. Military Sea Lift Command. Navy, the commanding officer is always dressed as the captain so long as he is a commissioned officer, no matter the size of the ship. Our ship was the captain, followed by first officer and the chief engineer. Okay, sailed for 40 years. Military Sea Lift. Okay, there we go. Thank you all so much. And let me wish you a very happy new year. This will be my last chance this year to do that. And thank you all so much for putting $49 in the chat revenue. Google takes their piece, and then I get the rest, and it really helps. So there we go for the last time in 2023, 73.